Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is Mr. Frank Spula, President of Polish National Alliance and Polish American Congress. Welcome, Mr. President.
Good afternoon. It's good to see you and good to be here.
We want to talk about an event that happened actually 25 years ago. 25 years ago, Poland, Czech Republic, and Hungary became part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, part of NATO. That was an epic moment, incredibly important moment in the history of Poland. Do you remember those days back in 1999?
I remember them vividly because I remember how the Polish American Congress was so vividly and aggressively involved in it, with the president of this organization at that time led by Mr. Moskal, by legal counsel Les Kaczynski, and by a staff in Washington, D.C., the Leonards, and even a historian, Donald Pincus, is a historian professor at the University of Wisconsin, leading the pack.
That process, that lobbying process, took several years since Poland regained independence from the communist rule in say 1990, but the lobbying started even sooner in 1989. How was it?
You know, just looking at it historically, you're so correct on your dates, because this was a mammoth task in order to accomplish this. It wasn't only the efforts of the Polish American Congress and its leadership, but it took the involvement or engagement of other folks across the country, by letter writing, by phone calls, by visiting congressmen and senators, because this whole issue, you had to convince the White House at that time. You know, you had a couple different presidents that were in office, but President Clinton is the one that actually listened to the words or the wisdom of our administration on the Polish American Congress. They listened to what he had to say, or what the administration had to say, and President Clinton concurred, and they were actually able to move it forward. But it did take a long time. It did not happen overnight, that's for sure. It was a many years of persuasion.
At that moment, you were the president of the Illinois division of Polish American Congress. Were you involved in those meetings?
Very much so. We were not only involved here locally on our offices on Milwaukee Avenue, because we were drafting letters. We were making copies of letters, getting signatures of individuals to sign the letter as supported, to our senators, to our congressmen, to the President of the United States. Many times we were up till midnight working in the offices, and I've reflected on all the people that were involved in this, and I'm saddened to say that all the people that were involved, most of them are gone. They're deceased. They're gone. Because it's 25 years ago, and I was much younger back then, and these folks were a lot older than I was. So unfortunately, they've passed away. But nonetheless, I saw the commitment that was actually taking place when you had volunteers coming to the office at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night after their work, if they can help out and stuff envelopes or make copies. It was incredible. And I can vividly recall, I drove to the post office with boxes of letters and dumping them to the main post office in Chicago. That's how incredible it was. But an interesting fact was when we actually went to the University of Wisconsin and met, President Clinton was supposed to be there, but unfortunately he couldn't, so he sent the vice president to take his place.
Al Gore.
Al Gore was there, and what happened, he met with us, and we drove out. There were 4 of us that drove. I was the chief driver back then, and there were 3 people in the back, plus a passenger up front and myself. So 5 of us actually went to represent the Illinois division of the Polish American Congress. It was like, yes, it was a cold day. So I'll never forget those days.
So meetings at the highest possible level here in America, but you also hosted numerous delegations from Poland. Poland back then did not have an established relationship with U.S. officials. They had to rely on Polish American organizations. Am I correct?
You are absolutely correct. And the Illinois division is one of the largest divisions in the country as far as the Congress is concerned, Polish American Congress is concerned. So these delegations were coming, and we've had so many meetings hosted in our office, literally, to have them speak to us, etc. And again, the list was endless as far as delegations coming in.
Why was it so important for Poland to join NATO as soon as possible?
Well, let's take a look at it. Poland was under partition for so many years, under communistic domain in a sense, for years and years and years. And we take a look at it, and knowing history itself, and we take a look at the Russian leaders, of what they are. They're very all similar. They're very similar.
Not a lot changes.
No. History, time goes on, moving fast forward. Time goes on, but boy, the ideologies remain the same. And it's so evident today what we see with Ukraine. We've got Putin, Vladimir Putin at his head, at the helm of Russia itself. Nothing has changed. Lives are taken in Ukraine. Thousands of people are dying, and history keeps on repeating itself. Times move on, change. People die, but history repeats itself, and that's the unfortunate part.
Yeah, so the imminent threat of having Russian powers immediately across the border pretty much prompted the accession to happen.
Absolutely, and you know, thank goodness for the wisdom of our people at that time, that they saw the need for NATO, for Poland to be part of NATO, and because of that, well, Czechoslovakia and Hungary were also part of that package, which is great because it makes it a stronger pact.
That is correct. Yesterday, there was a wonderful event organized at the Truman Library in Independence, Missouri, the very place where the accession documents were signed. You were part of those celebrations. What exactly happened in Independence, Missouri?
Well, you know, yesterday was a very interesting thing, and I applaud the efforts of our Consul General, Mr. Zyzak, or Consul General Zyzak, and his involvement or his spearheading as well with the Consulate of Hungary and Consulate of the Czech Republic, of gathering people to come out. The Illinois division was probably, Chicago, the representation was probably the largest, coming in, driving in or flying in, just to be part of this monumental moment, in a sense, historic moment, because as you alluded earlier, that's where the first NATO conference or the signature had taken place back, you know, so many years ago, you know. And here, 75 years later, you know, we're having the celebration of where the original document was signed by Harry Truman, or his act was proposed. 25 years later, we have the celebration of Poland being part of NATO. So, you know, this was a multi celebration, and it gives me pride as the president of the Polish American Congress that Poland has moved forward, or is so strong as a country today.
Yeah, and we are featured as one of the model allies for the United States. I think it also was highlighted by the visit of both President and Prime Minister of Poland in Washington. How do you see this Polish-American alliance, Polish-American partnership today?
Well, I think it sends a message that you need to have relationships built across the ocean. You need to have partnerships amongst other nations, because you cannot be alone, and not in this uncertain times. And we see that in Europe, what's taking place. So by having the Prime Minister and the President here, it shows that it shows a couple different things. This was a historic visit, that both of them were here in the United States, meeting with the President, our President, Mr. Biden, as well, to talk about issues moving forward, primarily about the support for Ukraine. So that it just reaffirms the position that Poland has been helping out Ukraine since day one, and the United States is obviously on top of that as well. So that shows a good partnership.
Let's talk about the situation in Ukraine. I think this is the #1 issue that pretty much drives international politics right now. How do you see the situation going forward in Ukraine?
Well, let's hope that the vote is taken in the Congress to give them the aid that they need.
Yes.
They really do need the aid. You know, last year I was in Europe a couple of times, or in Poland, and I saw the atrocities that have taken place in Ukraine itself, and I saw that what the EMS, the Emergency Medical Services team, is doing, of how many thousands of casualties they brought in.
Civilian casualties.
Yeah, you have civilian, you have military folks, but they brought in thousands of people across Poland. So when I take a look at it from a personal perspective, yeah, I do think that the aid is certainly needed for Ukraine, not only for Ukraine, but for the welfare of our entire world.
Do you think that if Ukraine will not stop Putin and his forces, he will reach farther west down the road?
That's frightening. You never know, because, you know, Putin himself, and I call him a satanic, he's an evil man. So yes, everything is possible with people that are not stable, you never know what tomorrow brings.
Yeah, what ideas?
No, you don't know what they're thinking.
Mind.
You absolutely don't know what they're thinking of. You don't know. When you're dealing with sane people or stable people, at least you can plan something and move ahead. But with this, the uncertainty is the unknown.
Yes. NATO became a hot topic recently because of some remarks by Donald Trump, former president. Well, he's putting some stark demands towards some NATO allies who are not paying up to whatever they promised. What is your opinion on those comments?
You know, there are countries that can afford it and some countries can't. All countries need protection and they need to be unified as one. You know, it's all for one and one for all, as a motto is concerned. Now, taking a look at that, if a country cannot afford it, they can maybe persuaded down the road when their economic situation is improved, so they can contribute and match up to what's done. Poland is very fortunate that it's able to do so. And again, personally, I have the utmost respect and credibility for the Polish government of how they succeeded over the last few years. And it gives pride to every Pole or Polish American that Poland is doing so well.
Yeah, but paradoxically, Poland, one of the poorest countries of Europe, pays up, fulfills its required contributions, and the big guys like Germany, France, they're lacking, so they have to pick up their slack.
Well, darn right. And you know, when you take a look at Germany and France, these are mega countries, countries. They have the manufacturing cars. They manufacture all the most expensive cars in the world. Your BMWs, your Mercedes, your Porsches, they're making money. So yes, I think they should be pressed against the wall, pay up because of your revenue coming in, plus other, you know, France itself. France has got what? The wineries, a lot of, they make their Peugeots or they make the Volvos from Sweden, but nonetheless, they have their wineries, and that's all big dollars coming in, the exports.
Yeah, those are one of the biggest economies. If they aspire to be the biggest players, they should put the money where their mouth is.
That's correct. It's got to pay to play.
Exactly.
Pay to play, Mr. Dudka.
Do you think that NATO has a role going forward? Is it going to remain relevant in the world?
Oh, it will certainly remain relevant because you're going to have more countries joining NATO. That's now they aspire because they see the uncertainties. It's the uncertainties that really trigger people to think about the future. What if? That's the big question. What if something happens? What if we get attacked? And I'm saying plurally as a country, what do we do? And you need to have allies, and that's why, yes, NATO will be a key player. It has been for many years already. Just take a look at all the millions. There's hundreds of millions of people that are protected by NATO. Even without, you know, if you take a look at historically of all the countries that belong to NATO and the millions of people that they have residing in that, I believe, I did some research a few months ago. I think it's in the realm of close to 200 million people across the world. So that says something to me. Yes, NATO is a relevant key player moving forward, regardless of what anyone says. I just don't think they know their history or know their facts.
Yeah, let's hope that NATO will remain strong. Let's hope that NATO will never be forced to show its power to the outside world, and that this strength will be a guarantee for peace in the world going forward. Mr. President, thank you so much for our conversation. And please promise us that you will be back here in the same spot to discuss other important matters.
It's always a pleasure, Mr. Dudka. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. Frank Spula, President of Polish National Alliance and Polish American Congress, was our guest today. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well.